History is written by the victors, but what happens when the victims demand a rewrite? Yesterday at the United Nations, the world witnessed a tectonic shift, and for the first time in history, a resolution was tabled to declare the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. Interestingly, the motion got passed, but the story isn't the victory, it's the resistance.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 123, against 3, abstentions 52. Therefore, draft resolution A/80/L48 is adopted.
123 countries said yes, but 3 countries, namely the United States, Israel, and Argentina, voted no. And then there is the silent 52 countries, including nearly the entire European Union and the United Kingdom. They also chose to abstain. But the biggest question is that, why would anyone vote against calling slavery a grievous crime? In this video, we unpack everything that led to these countries voting against and some abstaining. And all you gotta do is to like, comment, subscribe, like and share the video. Now let's get into the video.
Guys, if you've enjoyed this video so far, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button and subscribe. These videos take quite a long time to make, so if you could help me out, I'll love you forever. Thank you all for your support. Now let's get back to this crazy story.
From the second chamber to the fifth, you can clearly see that the floors are different from the first one. This is the darkening floor that I was talking about. Exactly. This is the darkening floor. This is what our ancestors left, how they stayed in the dungeons. These are feces, urine, blood, sweat, tears, vomit, saliva, human flesh, together with sand that has compacted to form this darkening floor. If we should excavate these darkening floors right now, we are going to see bricks underneath, like the first one that we see in the first chamber. And ironically, right above the male dungeon was a church. The British built a church right on top of the male dungeon. So then they worship up there, whilst the African men were suffering and dying directly under their feet. You know, this was intentionally done.
So I've already given you the backdrop to the story. Ghana eventually got the resolution passed. And now, slavery has been described as the gravest crime in history. So now it should surface in your history books. When you go to America and the world, the gravest sin of all time is slavery. It's been passed. 123 countries voted a yes, and that's it. But there are 3 countries who voted against it. To them, they said that no, slavery should not be regarded or should be passed as the gravest crime of all sins. And they include America, Argentina, and Israel. The Israel that Ghana and Africans believe that Jesus Christ came from. We want to go to Israel. They said no, slavery, no. Slavery is okay. Slavery is okay. And there were extra 52 countries which made up of the whole of the European Union. In fact, they didn't vote yes, they didn't vote no. Even part of the UK, they also abstained, they didn't vote. So this is why. So number 1, the no camp, which is the United States of America, Israel, and Argentina. Now, these nations argue that the language of the resolution opens a legal backdoor. And for them, these countries argue that the language of the resolution opens a legal backdoor to reparations. And so by labeling it as the gravest crime, it moves slavery from a historical tragedy to a legal liability that could cost trillions in compensations. And that is a smart move, because the African Union is already they've already got an analyst to put together and see, looking at the cost, how much Africa could make from these countries. And so the US are looking at that. And so that is why they voted no against it, because they know that once it is passed, African Union can now take them to court and demand reparations. You understand? But while the world focused on the no vote from the US, Argentina, and Israel, in fact, there was a much larger story which was unfolding in the yellow light. 52 nations refused to take side. They wanted to be in the middle ground. They're not voting for or against. Now, these countries include the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, Australia, Switzerland, and the entire 27-member European Union. All of them abstained. It wasn't just one region. In fact, it was the heart of the Western economic engine. Nearly every major former colonial power in Europe, the very nations that built their wealth on the back of the Middle Passage, chose to abstain. But the question is, why stay silent on a crime so globally recognized? And their reasons are as cold as they calculated. So the first reason for all of these countries abstaining was the hierarchy of horrors. So representatives from the United Kingdom and France stated that they abstained because the resolution labels slavery as the gravest crime. They argue this creates a hierarchy of atrocities, suggesting that by putting slavery at the top, it might diminish the memory of the Holocaust or other genocides as has happened in Rwanda.
We have repeatedly recognized the abhorrent nature of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, which inflicted untold harm and misery on millions of people over many decades. Its horrors were profound, and its legacy continues to leave deep scars today. The UK also believes that only by acknowledging and discussing collectively the most painful elements of the history that we share with other nations, including the transatlantic slave trade, can we come together in a spirit of solidarity and mutual respect to respond to the challenges that we all face today. The UK remains committed to that goal. That is why we engaged constructively throughout the negotiations on this resolution in the hope of reaching a consensual-based text. However, despite our efforts, our concerns have not been taken on board. The UK continues to disagree with fundamental propositions of the text and therefore, regrettably, could not vote in favour of it. Firstly, the UK is firmly of the view that we must not create a hierarchy of historical atrocities. Doing so simplifies the complexity and vast scale of suffering endured in different contexts. It risks diminishing the experiences of communities whose trauma and suffering was felt just as strongly. No single set of atrocities should be regarded as more or less significant than another. We should approach all historical injustices with the same seriousness, empathy, and respect to ensure that no one group is made to feel that their suffering is being overshadowed or treated as secondary.
But African and Caribbean leaders like Ghana's foreign minister shot back, asking that why is it that when we name our pain, you call it a competition? And number two was the reparations trap. So this is the big one, and most of these 52 countries have modern economies tied to the historical institutions. They are tied to their banks, insurance companies, and shipping lines that profited from slavery. And so by voting yes to the term gravest crime, they fear that they will be creating a legal obligations to pay trillions in reparations. And so abstaining allows them to acknowledge the tragedy of slavery without accepting the liability of it. And there are also a section who also argue, for them we call them the not my debt defense. That's what they also use, not my debt defense. Now, for that one too, nations like Switzerland and Canada often argue that they weren't the primary drivers of the slave trade. Yet, historians point out that the Swiss banks financed the voyages and the Canadian merchant provided the timber and saltfish that kept the plantations running. And for them, a yes vote is an admission of guilt they aren't ready to sign. Critics are also arguing that, is it about hierarchy or is it about the bank account? Just that the Americans are saying. So their section also believe that, in fact, the UK have the same assertions like America. They also don't want to be sued, you understand? But they are trying to find a nice way to cover it up. But in all of this, Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama didn't hold up. In fact, he stood on American soil and accused the US administration of normalizing the erasure of black history. And he didn't just say it, he pointed to a wave of new policies like the removal of the AP African American Studies, the banning of books on systematic racism.
Here in the United States, Black history courses are being removed from school curricula. Schools are being mandated to stop teaching students about the truth of slavery, segregation, and racism in American history courses. Books about those topics are being banned in schools and public libraries. Museums, art centers, and other institutions whose budgets rely in any way on public funds are being prohibited from scheduling exhibitions and programs or from displaying materials promoting racial awareness or Black history. Much like the law that was put in place to regulate the punishment of the enslaved in Barbados, these policies are becoming a template for other governments as well as some private institutions. At the very least, they are slowly normalizing the erasure. They are slowly normalizing erasure.
But for President Mahama and the African group, these 52 countries aren't just neutral. In fact, they are a wall of silence. And as Mahama put it, to remain neutral in the face of the gravest crime is to choose the side of the perpetrator. That's how they also see these 52 countries.
We have, in this resolution, talked about frameworks which will put in place that will take care of the consequences. We all know that the consequences of the transatlantic slave trade has been the lack of opportunity, discrimination, the degradation of people of color. So we have said, let's have frameworks that will serve as endowment funds to support education, to support empowerment, to support skills training, capital for entrepreneurs, and all of that. And we have made clear that African leaders or Caribbean leaders are not looking for money. It goes against our conscience to seek to profit from this. We don't want any payments made to us directly. We are talking about courses to deal with the structural inequalities. And we are also talking about the return of artifacts to the continent. It's all in the resolution. There are thousands of artifacts from Egypt all the way to the Ashanti Kingdom in Ghana. Those artifacts should not be returned on piecemeal as and when those who are in custody of those artifacts are in a good mood. So we have outlined what must be done and to whom these redress should be addressed to. So again, it is totally wrong for a claim to be made that there is no clarity about who benefits from reparatory justice.
So this is the key summary. The UK, Canada, Australia, and all 27 European Union member states, including France, Germany, Spain, Belgium, and the Netherlands, except the 52 countries who decided to abstain. Now, the logic is that they use diplomatic technicalities, arguing that language was too legally prescriptive and could lead to uncontrolled litigation in international court. But the contrast of the whole story is that while they abstain, they simultaneously claim to be leaders in global human rights, creating what critics call a moral paradox. But in all of this, what do you also think?
In the Gold Coast of Africa, to commemorate the beginning of freedom.
Now, do you think that the final reparations are the answer, or is the formal apology enough? Let me know in the comment section. I'm reading each and every single comment. It's a wrap for today.
Humanity of our ancestors who were enslaved, and as a matter of course, our own humanity. Recently, someone asked me to explain the importance of the resolution on the declaration of the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. And I responded without pause or hesitation, and I'd like to share what I told him. This resolution allows us as a global community to collectively bear witness to the plight of about more than 12.5 million men, women, and children whose homes, communities, names, families, hopes, dreams, futures, and lives were stolen from them over the course of 400 years. I speak these words today not only for Ghana, but also in solidarity with the rest of Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, and the wider diaspora, and indeed all people of good conscience throughout the world.